This is Chip Maxwell, and you're listening to the Retire Smart podcast with David Brooks. Back in the studio today is financial advisor Mike Shudel. He's here to discuss wills versus trusts, who needs what, and why getting a proper estate plan in place is crucial. We'll also highlight our upcoming estate and tax planning class, where you can learn how to protect your assets and ensure a smooth transition for your loved ones. Stay tuned for valuable insights on securing your financial future.
Once again in the studio, our resident authority on estate planning, one of our most successful financial advisors, and the advisor's got more letters behind his name than anyone I've ever met. Literally now with the latest certification you picked up, SEPA, I believe you officially have more letters than are in the alphabet behind your name.
There's no X in there, I don't think. But
so, yeah.
Maybe they'll make one for me.
I'm just counting. You got more than 26. If we add them all up, you got more than
that
26
might be right.
letters,
We'll
right?
see.
So,
I don't know.
8 or 9 certifications. I don't even can't keep up. But anyway,
I read good.
You are a learned man. All right. And we love to have you come in occasionally and talk about, well, one, we have one of our most successful classes, very popular, tax and estate planning, that you put on with Colin Kastrick, who is an actual practicing estate planning attorney. And again, for disclosure for our audience, Mike does have a JD, did earn his Juris Doctorate, has a law degree, does not practice law, etc. But he's an extremely competent financial advisor and very well versed in these areas. So we have a class coming up that is going to be next week. When are the dates on that?
Yeah, Tuesday, March 25th at 6:30 p.m. and Thursday, March 27th at 6:30 p.m.
So either Tuesday or Thursday, 25th, 27th, 6:30 p.m. Call the office or go to the events page, retiresmartnow.com, and you can register. But you must register so we know how many people. It's very, very popular class and does fill up. So today, really, I just wanted to kind of jump in, Mike, and briefly get down to some basics, because recently, actually, I was driving in to the office this morning and heard an advertisement for another financial planning firm that's offering a free will and trust if you do business with us. So what is the value of that?
Probably worth every penny.
Yeah. So I think that's so true. If you're getting your will done for free, It's exactly. It's probably worth it, right?
Look,
why would you do this? I mean, just from the outset, right now. And what I want to talk about today is will versus trust and who needs what, right?
Right.
Because a will is not very expensive to have done competently by an estate planning attorney, by a professional, dotting your I's, crossing your T's. Why would you want to save several $100s to maybe $1,200 on the high end or something for a basic estate package when you've saved $500,000, $2 million, $5 million or more, and you're going to put your family through a lot of pain and a lot of additional expense if you haven't done this correctly, right?
Right, yeah. I put it this way, nobody likes to pay professional fees. They're, it's an investment you're making, but for heaven's sakes, why would you work a lifetime killing yourself day in and day out at a job, saving money for your future, and then let's either just, pay a couple $100 for something we print off the internet and hope it works out, or like you said, I just would be concerned about the free aspect of it. So I'm an example. I paid for an estate plan. I had a trust by a smart attorney, but he wasn't an estate planning attorney. So it was like going to a general practitioner when you need brain surgery. Not your best bet.
No, you need a specialist in each of these areas. And again, we do not practice law, but we have at least 3 members of the team. I'm thinking of, if there's a fourth, 3 of you guys have law degrees. None of you practice law. You guys have all gone to law school, have all been trained on the basics of this, but yet none of you do it day in and day out. And I mean, and so of course we do recommend estate planning attorneys. We have several at our disposal. The one we most frequently talk about is Colin Kastrick, and because he's a frequent guest of this show, but he's not the only one we'll refer to as well. If you have a specific need, or there's specific reasons we might refer to you. But let's talk about the basics. What is a will, right? And you go into this extensively in the class, but just generally, what is the will?
It's basically giving directions on how you want your assets handled at the time of your death. Where are they going?
So you're hoping when you're gone, we follow your will or your intentions, right? A la a will, to do what you want. Now, then let's talk about the difference from there, stepping up to a trust. And some people think, I heard I need a trust. And the reality is, I'd say 40% of our clients need trust. Probably 60% do not. Can you kind of speak to that?
I would generally agree with that. It's hard to quantify these things per se, but Nebraska, of all jurisdictions, has actually some very favorable laws on how to transition your assets at the time of death. So if you have a good will and you have your powers of attorney, can't emphasize enough to have that. Everybody should have power of attorney so that if they become disabled, there's instructions
you should have one for both for healthcare
and property.
And financial, right? The two main ones you want there. And it doesn't have to be the same person you're giving this power of attorney to. So like I am the power of attorney on some financial matters for both my parents, but my sister and brother have the healthcare financial power. And that makes sense, right?
Yep,
they're closer to them, et cetera. So
it's just one of those things where I feel like, and hey, this is just my perception, who knows, but it feels like certain things are just touted more and more these days. For example, Medicare Advantage plans, go get one of those. Hey, they're great for some people, not for others.
Yeah, a lot of people finding out the hard way that that's not the right choice.
Just pump the brakes, go get yourself educated. And that's why we offer free classes on all this stuff. But trusts, powerful legal instruments, something that I have because I own a farm that I want to be taken care of after I die. But in the absence of that, I don't have kids, I don't have a wife, I would not have a trust. Not right now.
No, and my wife and I have multiple trusts. We have a much more complicated setup as it currently is. I have 2 grown children, have no grandchildren, et cetera, same thing. But every 2 or 3 years, in fact, Colin just called me, hey, it's time to update, right? Because the net worth of my estate changes, right? It grows over time, as everyone's does, and the complications grow. Now, I currently run 4 different companies that I'm the sole owner of, that are all $1 million plus revenue companies, right? So it gets complicated when you start putting this together, and whether someone's a business owner or they just have, they just been saving, they got $800,000 in the 401k. You need to have the documentation for all these things, from a spouse to spouse if you're married, transfer, right, to make sure the transition's correct, and then from the remaining spouse to your beneficiaries, whether it's your kids, your favorite charities, or whoever, and or if you don't have children like you do, right? We need to make sure you're choosing who would be the beneficiary, whether it's a charity or a person you want to bless. But unfortunately, here in Nebraska, we are a good transition state, but we do have, and of course, there's some legislative made to take, but we're one of 6 states that still charges a freaking inheritance tax, right?
It's frustrating. Yep.
So the trust, the advantages, and you go over this again in the class, is really, you know what? You want to keep all your stuff private? It's a good way to go, right? Because the trust will keep it out of the court system, where if you do not have a trust, if you have a will, if you have a complicated assets that are going to flow through that will, all that is information that is now public.
Correct.
Goes through the probate court. Anyone can go look it up. Now, let's talk about the reason why someone may only need a will. So if they have only traditional retirement accounts, 401k, IRAs, et cetera, they can leave a designated beneficiary on said account, and that passes immediately probate-free to the beneficiary.
True. That's also true for your home, your cars.
And then here in Nebraska, you can do transfer on death deed, TODD, in Nebraska. Yes, 24 or 26 states, I forget. It's about half of the states allow this, but you must file, and you need an attorney here in the state of Nebraska to file that for you. Again, all these are the reasons. So you could have a multi-million-dollar estate pass quickly and efficiently in Nebraska without a trust. Now, if you have what are non-retirement assets, if you have non-qualified assets that have amounted to something, you own land, farmland, as you do, businesses, rental properties, just have a joint checking account or that has a decent amount of money in it, or stocks and a couple $1 million portfolio. These are things you might want to consider for not only for asset transfer, but also for asset protection, right? Liability protection. We can talk about where you can have an LLC created for a lot of these passive assets like the farm, and then that LLC can be owned by the trust. Again, you cover all this stuff in the class. So again, when is this class? I know we're running out of time here.
Yeah, it's next Tuesday. That's the 25th at 6:30 p.m. here in our office, or next Thursday, March 27th at 6:30. And they're the same content, so you only need to come to one, but we'd sure like to see some people come and attend.
Yeah, and you do need to register, though, because it will run at retiresmartnow.com. Find the events page or give the office a call. Mike, we are out of time this week. Thanks so much for stopping in.
Yeah, thank you very much, David.
Thank you for listening to the Retire Smart podcast with David Brooks. If you want to learn how to generate lifetime income, reduce your tax bill, and maintain your lifestyle in retirement, visit retiresmartpodcast.com. And make sure to subscribe to keep up with new episodes every week. Financial advisor Mike Shudel has a Juris Doctorate law degree but is not licensed to practice law. Any statements and opinions are general information and not legal advice.